I saw my physical body float away, and then I sent it to a higher state of consciousness. And in this second one, I I went through, what people call the tunnel of light. I went through the tunnel of light, graduated, and went beyond the veil that you're not supposed to come back. And this is where I saw the workings of how, well, space and time work, how frequencies work, how realities, consciousness, dimensions of time and space work, and brought that science back into this reality. And it's interesting too, Faust, that at that level, the amount of love that you experience and the potential that you are would blow your circuits in physical form. I don't think we could even handle that much love and, say, possibilities that are out there for us. And it's just so much bliss that I think you would literally fractal yourself in physical form.
Welcome to Far Out with Faust, everybody. I am Faust Chicho, and today I'm very excited to be joined by Masati. Let me tell you about this incredible human being and what he has been up to. Masati has experienced multiple near-death experiences. He's come back to share wisdom and remarkable abilities that break through the limitations of psychology, willpower, and the current paradigm of self-improvement techniques. And he's come back to change countless lives by helping people shift at their core frequency, resulting in drastic life transformation that oftentimes defies physical logic. Masati believes that his method, the decode, wait, is it Xi or is it, am I saying that right? It's Xi. The decode is the next generation of human advancement, and it utilizes the power of frequency to massively transform your life. And he's worked with multiple, there's a whole, I could list a paragraph of all these incredibly huge companies, almost all of whom you've heard of, royal families, celebrities, athletes, right down the line. There's a very extensive list of all the people who he has worked with. And he also donates his time to schools and hospitals and special needs groups and local communities to help and share his philosophy and system. So without further ado, Masati, thank you so much for beaming in and taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me, Faust.
So I think the best place to begin, my friend, you've died 3 times. How did you come back?
How did I come back?
Yeah.
It's just, before my near deaths, Faust, I just wanted to understand the equation of life here. Just like Einstein, he wanted that one equation of life. I guess I was dying to find out the equation of life because, before my first near death, I studied a lot of the religions, spiritual movements, and so on, and it just, they're really great teachings. Or maybe they're not. I'm not here to judge, but it was half-assed, really. There was a lot of questions unanswered. And then you look at the people who are like that, and they're still suffering just like everybody else. I'm going, damn, what's the complete answer? And then, so I went towards, success. If I made, software program, I could sell it to Google or Facebook, and I go, that'll be successful because, and that's what today most people go, if I had all this money, I'll be fine. But then nowadays I work with a lot of people who have a hell of a lot of money, and they still are suffering just like everybody else. So I was like, well, why aren't those solutions working? Or the technologies, why are they destroying societies versus, enhancing societies, right? So those are the questions at a young age that I was seeking. So, and it was on my mind all the time, and I guess, consciousness or the universe basically goes, do you really want to know? And this is where it's like, yeah, I really want to know. It's like, all right. And then, it provided a near-death experience. It was a college job. I was unloading rail cars, in a warehouse, and my jaws got crushed in between these moving walls. And I was literally dangling by my jaw.
Did you say your jaws? Your jaw?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So they have these moving walls inside these rail cars, that keep the product in place.
Yeah.
So, so it was stuck. Me being athletic, I climbed up and I was just pulling on these rafter, on this wall. And then my teammates were pulling from underneath, and it just gave way. So this half-ton wall, was rolling on its rails, right, and there's a ceiling member, and it's like, oh shit, what stopped it was my jaw, and it's just like my jaw got crushed, and just I was dangling there. I physically saw my body because I was outside of my body. So my consciousness just literally completely separated. I saw my body, and then I go, wow, that's really limiting. And that's where I found that we're only using maybe up to 2 or 3% of our potential in physical form. The other 98% is our limitless being that we, a lot of, when we're children, we feel that expression, or even as adults, we go, God, we know we could be much more than who we are. That knowing. I actually experienced that.
Wow.
Consciously, and then I floated into a bliss space where, where I reviewed my life and understood why things happened the way they did, and just rewrite the meaning, not the experiences, but because that's written in time, but just literally rewrite the meaning of, what life is about, or why did I go through all those things that I did.
It's a huge ability. People don't realize that. Yeah, we can't time travel, but we can change the past because we can change what we understand about it. We can change what we believe about it, and that changes our experience in the present, and certainly begins to shape a different future. And I try to also impart this wisdom upon people because they don't understand they have the power to recontextualize and realize and enlighten themselves about things that may seem like, the absolute horrific, most victimizing stuff anyone could have experienced. And even those things can become sources of light when viewed with the right perspective. So
Absolutely.
And that was just one of your NDE.
That was just one of them.
So tell me about the second and third, because I, as I understand it, each one revealed more layers for you.
Yeah. So the first one, was like an apprentice level on how time and space works, or how the quantum realms works, the matrix, as they call it, works. The second near death was a drowning, where we were on a leisurely cruise, and we, on a cruise ship, and we decided to go, inner tubing down in Belize, and the rapids were quite fast. And I broke away from the guide and the rest of my family and just got basically sucked into a cenotes, which is probably a lava tube that, back in the day. Now it's filled with water.
Yeah.
So I got sucked into one of those, and again, I tried to climb out, but the pressure of, water, of a tube water going into that tube that big is like there's no way in hell. So I gave up after probably about a minute. This is probably the longest I could hold, or maybe a bit more. And then I saw the same thing, disconnected from my body. I saw my physical body float away, and then I ascended to a higher state of consciousness. And in this second one, I went through, what people call the tunnel of light. I went through the tunnel of light, graduated, and went beyond the veil that you're not supposed to come back. And this is where I saw the workings of how, space and time work, how frequencies work, how realities, consciousness, dimensions of time and space work, and brought that science back into this reality. And it's interesting too, Faust, that at that level, the amount of love that you experience and the potential that you are would blow your circuits in physical form. I don't think we could even handle that much love and, say, possibilities that are out there for us. And it's just so much bliss that I think you would literally fractal yourself in physical form if you experience
My God,
that.
you might as well be speaking about this experience I had on ayahuasca one time, which was literally that experience. And when I came back into my physical body, it was like, no, we're not.
Yeah, exactly.
Not even, you can't begin to, it was like a complete short circuit, which was wild to experience, and felt very much near death at one point, as completely blissed out, like that extreme feeling of love was then, at the tail end of it was this crazy, like, uh-oh.
Yeah, in fact, I help people that do psychedelics, ayahuasca, DMT, and Blue Lotus or whatever that people do, because if you aren't directed or guided or on autopilot in those realms, you basically would go to a realm that you're conditioned to. So this is where people have bad experiences, like on 5-MeO, DMT, because if their life is abusive or controlling or
Yeah.
whatever, they'll go into a realm. The plant will go, oh, this guy is running an abusive, distorted life.
Right.
Let's take him to that realm, and it becomes abusive as you go through your higher space.
Right.
So what I do is like, hey, let's get you on autopilot so you can go to the realm where your potential is, not your distortions. And then when you come back, it's like, gosh, now you have 2 points, where you want to be and where you don't want to be in life. And then you can
Right.
set a trajectory.
Then you can start using that as your
Yeah.
GPS,
Yep.
And
Exactly.
the third one.
Oh, yeah. So the second one gave me like a journeyman level where I started to master, the programming of this reality. The third one was a mastery level where I can, actually edit time and space for pretty much anyone. And that was, I was in Peru, probably during COVID. I probably had COVID, and my mineral level just was so depleted that there was no there was no currency. There was no current in my body, so my body literally stopped. I could see my son holding me down as I like went above me, and I was looking down, and I'm going, damn. I felt so sad for my son. It's like, damn, I hope this doesn't affect him. And then I just went into, again, a bliss space, just a void this time, where all possibilities could exist, hence a void. And then they must have pumped me full of like minerals, potassium, magnesium, and all that. And I found myself back in the hospital bed. I didn't know.
Wow.
I didn't know anything.
So you had just completely it wasn't you had just exhausted yourself completely. Is that?
Yeah, yeah. I just drained my minerals. I don't know how. It could have been the elevation too. Between the elevation, I think Cusco is about 10,000 feet around that. And we were hiking that day, so it just depleted beyond death levels. Let's just say.
Right. So I mean, basically, you lost consciousness and were
Yeah.
hit or miss, which
Yeah.
led to that experience.
Yeah. So yeah, that level just really allowed me to really say understand the concepts, and again at a say PhD level on how time
Right.
and space consciousness works and so on like that. So
Man,
Yeah.
these are some of my favorite topics. I'm a big student, kind of longtime student of Dr. Joe Dispenza's. So I don't know if
wonderful.
you know his work, but
Yeah. So Joe Dispenza is really fantastic. Joe Dispenza, Tony Robbins is an offshoot and all that.
Yeah.
So, just to put kind of light on what I do. So there's your physical actions here. Joe Dispenza, again, more of the mental state, more of controlling your brain and so on like that. But then there's a substructure or foundational level of who you are. So, and that's the work that I do. So what I do is literally, well, most people go, I'm broke or I'm sick or whatever. It's like, well, let's change your mindset. Let's put in, more medicine, more whatever, let's exercise, do whatever. But again, your substructure, your foundation that you're building your house upon is still the same. So what I do is go, hey, let's change your foundation. Let's change what you inherited from, your genetic patterns, generational patterns, your past life patterns and so on that you brought into this reality that you're creating a foundation. Let's change that. And then what Joe Dispenza's or Tony Robbins, I have a lot of clients from those two. And they go, gosh, their work that they do is Joe, accelerates, magnifies because their foundation, it's not a drag on them anymore. You can only go so fast as your foundation. No
Right.
matter how, no matter how conscious you are or, cognitive, no matter how you change your brain, there's still a drag on you. So you get
Right.
rid of the drag, and those people that have taken Joe's classes, they just like accelerate.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. I've seen it and experienced it. So, you talk about shifting frequency, like it's a physics-based process, right? And I love that because I truly believe that, God willing, in the next 50 to 100 years, that science catches up to what, many of us understand to be true
Yep.
about vibration, about frequency, the fact that this is truly all there is. And if you're leaving this out of your science, you're leaving out just about everything, right? And
Yep.
and I love that because the context that you speak about it is, it's like this is a physics-based process, not new age woo-woo or anything,
No.
like, and the question is, like, what does it mean to actually change your frequency? Is it like entering another dimension? Like, I don't know if you've ever seen Stranger Things, the upside
sure.
down,
Yeah.
they call it,
Yeah.
But obviously there's no Demogorgon waiting for you. It's kind of the opposite. So, like,
Yeah.
can you help people who are more new to these concepts than others? Like, is higher better? Is it like tuning into the right frequency, like a radio? Can you go into that a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. And one of my abilities after my second year of death is literally reading your frequency, or basically how you are creating your identity of who you are. Basically, that's what your frequency is. Just like, you tune into, a country music station or a rock station, it has a certain frequency for that, say, radio signal or TV signal, right? So you have a frequency. So you tap into your frequency, and that's your personal frequency signature, which is dictated by, generational patterns, your experiences, previous lifetimes, society's patterns, and so on like that. So when you start to understand that concept, most people, again, are watching. So imagine this, Faust. You're watching a TV show that you don't like, okay? And then you try to adapt to it by changing your mindset. You put better music on, or you'll try to preoccupy yourself while you're watching this movie or while you're in this movie. What I'm saying is, like, no, you need to change your frequency to another channel. Okay, so this is where, like, success or wealth or religions and all those things really don't work, because you're still watching the same channel, you're still in the same environment, but you're just making it more comfortable for yourself. That's what most people do. We have to change, again, the core channel or the core frequency of who you are. Okay? And by the way, the science is called exponential intelligence metascience. The science that I work at, basically, or I discovered it, I didn't create it. It's basically the science of natural intelligence, the science of the universe, the science that's been around for billions of years, the science that created your logistics, or the mechanics that render you as human, which is pretty amazing science, by the way. It's been proven. It's been around for, again, billions, maybe trillions of years. Human science has only been around as long as maybe humans.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of exceptions to the rule in human science. So, and I don't know why scientists think that it's the end all. There's so many exceptions to science, other than the hard sciences, which has less and less exceptions. But every other science has a lot of exceptions to the rule. So if your science has, or your belief system, like your religions and so on, have exceptions to the rule, you need to go to a higher level of consciousness or awareness. It's simple as that. Okay? If you're not getting, simply put, if you're not getting the same results as Jesus or a Buddha or Muhammad, you're probably doing your religions wrong. You're probably doing your science wrong, simply put. Okay? So what I do is, like, let's access that higher level of consciousness. So back to your question, though, is, say that you're in an environment, and the environment or the consciousness or the dimension of time and space that you create yourself in dictates how you're created. Okay, so for example, if you live in in the Arctic, where it's cold all the time, that environment creates who you are. You adapt to that environment. Does that make sense? Your clothing, what you eat, your ideas of who you are, all that adapt to that environment. So you move to another environment, say, I don't know, say San Diego, right? And it's more flourishing there. So you'll flourish better. It's not as harsh. You don't have to
Right.
wear a parka all the time and all that. So again, it's the environment that you change, not your mindset. So in a dimension of time and space, just like what they call the matrix, there's a dimension that people create themselves in. And usually that dimension, is lack or sacrifice or control. Okay? They live in a dimension of, say, abuse patterns. You had childhood abuse. Again, sure, it's from your parents and sure, it's from society and so on like that, but why are you still running it?
Right. That's your programming.
Yeah, exactly. Or people who go from rags to riches. I work with a lot of wealthy individuals, and they're still running, say, poverty patterns. Their wealth does not say their wealth. They didn't change who they are, and this is where the wealthier that they get, the more poverty-stricken that they get, and this is where distorted wealth comes in. Or even spiritual people, again. So they didn't change their consciousness. So what I do is I go, hey, this is where you're creating yourself in. This is the dimension of time and space that you're creating yourself in. Okay? There's another version of you, Faust, here, that is healthier, knows how to run, say, success patterns differently than sacrificing yourself, knows how to age
or stressing
differently.
yourself out, or being completely, miserable half the time at least, right?
Exactly. So it's like, let's put you in that. So I basically tell people, this is where you are, because most people don't realize where they are. Because they think, it's like, oh, I've got a great job. Yeah, but you're still abused or abusive. You still don't have good family relationships. It's like, well, I go to church every Sunday and stuff. It's like, yeah, but you're still getting sick like everybody else. You know what I mean? It's like they're trying to cover up their underlying frequencies.
Right.
By, again, staying in that same place and covering it up. So I get down to the nitty-gritty, basically the cause of why their life is where they are, and then go, you know what, you have options. So literally, I help them be an observer of their life and go, damn, I have options. And then I go, okay, you've got point A, where do you want to be? A better version of yourself? You want to be healthier? You want to do X, whatever X is for you? That's in this dimension of time and space. Let's take you there. And this is where, again, different than Tony Robbins, where Tony Robbins just is like sheer willpower. I'm impressed by how much willpower that guy has. Damn, he can take millions of people along with him.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
It drains the hell out of you. But if you're in that right environment, you still have to do the work, but it's a lot easier because it manifests for you.
You expedite everything.
Absolutely.
You try to change things from a purely physical, three-dimensional state, and you're efforting into old age. You know what I mean? Like it takes so long, and that's and people don't understand that because they're not taught this perspective, about reality. But the people who learn it and begin to practice it, we experience it. We see how fast things can shift. I mean, I'm talking about physically as well as emotionally, mentally, spiritually. When you begin to shift from this dimension, from this, this blueprint that we all have the ability to work with, but most people are completely ignorant that it exists, let alone that's where you can begin to really play with the matrix, like Neo came into his ability to play with the matrix, right?
Yeah, and nowadays, I don't know if you're aware, but San Diego, there's a university in San Diego, I don't know which one, but they're trying to map out the DMT realm. So, they put people on intravenous DMT, and then they try to map it out. So more science is getting into is going, God, there's a consciousness out there. Basically, I have access not just to the DMT realm, but pretty much all the realms of possibilities that humans can create themselves in.
Yeah.
So it's
and
out
DMTs,
there.
It's a fascinating molecule.
I actually did a X Prize application on what quantum computers can be used for. So it's a novel idea. It's like, hey, we can use quantum because we need that processing speed to go. Hey, we can map out the realms that I see that I'm in all the time.
Yeah.
So
we should be using those type of things for all kinds of massively productive, yet simple questions. But you won't see them used for that very often because everyone who has a quantum computer is like, shh, don't tell anyone. We don't want
Yeah,
China to
exactly.
know, as if China doesn't have one. You know what I mean? Like,
I know.
and they're
And
extremely expensive, but
yeah, which is sad because you get in, because they're in the wrong level of consciousness where
yeah,
again sacrifice and control and lack,
scarcity. You know,
scarcity happens. If we went to another level of consciousness, we could share our knowledge and we could accelerate as humans. And there's no competition. There is competition, but you don't have to destroy others to be ahead of a person because there's so much information out there that we don't know that as a human species we we would never run out of the knowledge or information that's out there or the possibilities that are out there for us. There's
right?
plenty for everybody. There's plenty of
Absolutely.
wealth or abundance for everybody that's out there.
Agreed. Agreed. And
Yeah.
I try to emphasize this also in my work and in my live streams and in my every opportunity I can, because when people realize that scarcity is a mindset, that it is a belief system that's been
Absolutely.
indoctrinated through society, through the what people mistakenly refer to as the elite class, or what I
Yeah.
like to call the parasite class.
Yeah.
This is all methodical,
Yeah.
to justify the way that they rule and to justify the world that they want you to believe you live in. And
Absolutely.
it's a crime, if you ask me, in many real ways. But
It is a crime.
you know, so speaking of psychedelics, do you think psychedelics are and can be training wheels, or platforms, stepping stones to these this greater perspective, or do you think that they could actually interfere with the kind of dimensional control that you teach?
Yes. So in my course called Mindscapes Unleashed, I literally help train individuals to go through the psychedelic process and understand it. But imagine this: you want to you're in a F1 race car, okay, and you have no idea on how to operate the race car, right? You have no clue on the physics on going around a curve, whatever that you need to do. And then most people with psychedelics, that's what it is. It's like you're kind of messed up already, and then you get into an advanced technology because psychedelics are very, very intelligent.
Hmm.
They take you into an altered state where you can see your possibilities. But just like that race car, if you don't know how to control those realms, it'll destroy you. And this is where a lot of people get addicted to psychedelics because they go to those realms, they get messed up, but they have a great experience. But every time they go, they disorient or they distort themselves when they come back. So this is where I help a lot of people use psychedelics properly. So just like any tool that's benevolent in nature, it can turn into a destructive force if you don't know how to use it properly. So
Certainly, yeah.
yeah.
Um,
In fact, this past weekend, I was with ex-Navy SEALs, helping them, with Navy SEALs that have trauma
oh yeah,
symptoms from the war. But what he said was very, very perceptive, and that's what I see as well. A lot of the trauma that these Navy SEALs are trying to recover from are basically traumas from childhood
wow.
that they went to Navy SEALs to cover up their traumas, thinking being powerful and strong, and it didn't work out. It just magnifies who they're not,
Right.
basically.
And exasperates, and then you add
Yeah,
more trauma on top of trauma, and then you see why the suicide rate, and why our veterans are
yeah, exactly.
dealing with what they're dealing with.
Yeah. So if you integrate what I do, and then ibogaine or DMT for those trauma victims or any other victims, but or addictive type victims, um, it just takes it's not the fast track if you use psychedelics. If you
Hmm.
don't need to use psychedelics, we still work on that. But it is a fast track to get you into, say, a non-addictive identity of who you are at a very,
Yes,
very deep level. So,
I love that word,
even
fast track.
yeah,
It's
even
very
psychedelics
apropos.
just work at the brain level, by the way.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I feel like if you're conscious enough, then you can explore them from a heart level. But most of the time, that's, people go into these experiences and it's all mental. It's all,
Totally.
sure, it becomes sensorial, but
Totally.
if you're not consciously, like, the way I like to do things is like, can I make this a heart opening experience?
Yeah.
Whether it be psychedelic or, that's the challenge I lay down for myself, because it changes everything, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Well, that heart experience, are you doing it at a conscious level, or are you doing it at a, say, spiritual level, or your timeless self level?
well, I try to, I try, when I'm doing, I try to combine all three, because,
Yeah.
you can, if you can begin to open your heart, then physically something literally happens to what we often call a muscle. I'm not sure if that's
Yeah.
what it is, but your heart actually does begin to swell in size. It begins to take in more blood, pump out more blood. You kind of do. You really physically actually open your heart, and so there's a physical, accompaniment of symptoms that go with this feeling of love, and so it becomes both physical, spiritual, emotional. I think when you do it right.
Yeah. Faust, I invite you to do a session with me, just
Yeah.
on the house, before you do any journey before. And one, I could get you into those states a
Sure.
lot cleaner, even if you don't do psychedelics. But yeah, I could get you into those higher states since you've been there, and you get to see the clarity. And then you get to see consciousness from a very, very different perspective. And, your journey is going to be much more awakening, because what a lot of people do is, like, they have a beautiful journey out there, but when they come back down, they don't know how to bring that beauty and grace down
Yeah.
to their physical platform. So like I did with my second near death, it allowed me to understand the logistics on, well, how do I create that reality that I see possibilities into physical form?
Right. Well,
Again,
I appreciate the offer, and I'll take you up on it. It's probably
yeah,
too late for me as far as doing it before. I've done every psychedelic pretty much,
yeah,
over the years.
that's cool.
But I'm definitely interested, and I know how incredible that can be, as a tool to shape the outcome of a
Yeah,
journey or experience. So, yeah.
yeah.
Let's go a little farther out. Maybe not for you, but well, we'll see. In your experience, who or what do we encounter in these other dimensions? Like, are the people would say they're all angels and demons, or is it AI? Are they ETs? Are they extra dimensionals? Like, are we encountering our own spirit guides, like that are just there to help us remember what we forgot? What are your thoughts on all these things?
Oh, wow. Yes. Yes to all of them. And again, it's dictated by the patterns that you run, frequencies that you run to get into those altered states. There are people, well, we can talk about, say, the devil or Satan, so to speak.
Yeah,
Because I think that's a lot. It's on people's minds, because especially with the distortions that's happening in today's, the chaos. It's like, oh, why is God doing this? The devil and so on.
that's
It's
not
winning.
God. That's the
Okay.
devil.
Yeah, it's like, what? Anyway, so the devil doesn't really exist outside of time and space. So it's not like, oh, like in the Bible and the religions, oh, the devil Satan got mad at God. Because if you're at that level of consciousness, you don't have human emotions or anything like that. So again, that's totally a myth. Doesn't really work. However, the devil or the distortions, because we broke away from that high consciousness or natural intelligence, or basically what nature is, right? So we broke away from that because of free will, because we wanted to recreate ourselves, in our way, and understand, say, God or a higher consciousness from a different perspective. Or basically, how do we duplicate nature? Well, we have to step away from nature and be on our own, just like a teenager would. You have to step away from your adults. They can't support you anymore. Hence, that's what free will is. So free will can be a bitch, though, if you don't know how to run it properly, right? So what we've done, or what's happened, is, like, we make mistakes and then we attribute it, or we have blessings happen to us and then we attribute it to an outside source, a God, an angel, and all that. And then we start to create We start to say, pray to the sun, and then we start to pray to this god of god of virtue, god of harvest, god of whatever. We start to create these identities, a physical identity or a physical representation of all these things. But literally, they're just a consciousness. There is a consciousness of virtue that's out there. People have just identified. Am I still connected? It says.
You should.
Are we
be.
still good?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Okay.
believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, it said trying to reconnect. Anyway.
Oh.
Yeah. So we've created all those, say, false identities, and then we look up to those identities. So we give away our power, right? In fact, I was in China just a month ago, and I went to the Taoist temples to understand Taoism, and they have like a couple hundred gods. And I'm going, what the hell? Tao wasn't even supposed to be a religion in the first place. Neither was Buddhism. But again, now they've got tons of gods. So again, we always give away our power. Hence, and then if we give away our power, the universe never stays empty. So something fulfills that power, and then we start to render like an identity called Satan, and enough people believe in it, and then that becomes a living, breathing consciousness that goes, oh, we need to control you. So, and then it thrives. So Satan and all those distortions literally are creations of, say, man, not of a higher presence.
I'm with you. I
So
I
yes,
don't think it's
those
a coincidence that the Christian hell happens to rhyme perfectly and be spelled, with an extra L, as the Norse mythology
Yeah.
about hell, and this. I believe she was like the goddess of the underworld, and
Yeah.
like that. I mean, you can see the overlapping of these different mythologies, which have become religions.
Totally.
So I'm with you.
Yeah, again, half-ass concepts. They didn't get to understand the full. I mean, to put it in a religious perspective, God loves you so much, you can create anything you want.
That's right.
Because you've got free will. If you want to think that you're going to go to hell, you're going to create hell for yourself.
Right.
Got nothing to do with God or the angels or whatever you did. But, that religion basically goes, hey, you're born in sin, you live in sin,
That's
you're going to
right.
go to sin. And then what do you think? We're great, we're fantastic creators. It's like shit.
We
And then
sure
so
are.
many people believe in that. Billions of people believe in it, which creates momentum. And then, well, there's a realm that, poof, gets created called hell.
That's right.
So.
But, you just hit the nail right on the head, and I
Yeah.
I love talking about it.
Yeah.
It's like, do you understand how much God loves you, and
Yeah.
how much you have adopted the same creative spark that God used to create everything that is in existence in every dimension, and if you,
Absolutely.
so that when you are walking around, and you're constantly putting off this sense of dissatisfaction, and that you're not content,
Yeah.
then the signal that you're putting out, God is like, oh, my beautiful child, you seem to be so content to be dissatisfied. Here's more of that feeling, my little child, and,
Exactly.
and the opposite for people who are, feeling gratitude. It's like, here's more of that feeling. It's always more of what you're putting out, not necessarily what you say you want. And it's like, if you can understand that, that's how much the universe, God, source loves you. It's going to keep giving you what you're putting out, regardless of whether you're conscious of it or not. Then you've come to a greater understanding of this reality.
Totally. Let's put some science to that, if you
Sure.
don't mind, so people understand the concept, because it is that way. So if you look at Facebook, for example, or Google, if you're searching for abusive programs, basically, or like short change, or you're not good enough, you search for, say, clothes that just basically send to the world that, hey, you're not good enough. Basically Google picks up an algorithm and goes, oh, that's what they want. That's what they want to do, and identify as that. So whatever you're searching for in Google, Google will give you more. Okay? Okay, there's a human consciousness algorithm. Okay, in humanity, all the inputs that billions or trillions of people over the history of humans have been around, I'd say closer. I don't know how many billions and billions of people who have died, and all their inputs in this reality is into that database. And then that database basically goes, oh, that's what they want. More wars, because that's how they survived. That's how they defined themselves. That's how they succeeded. If your grandparents went through a war, and there's psychological studies on this, and they went through drought and famine, okay? 5 generations later, that person that's never been in war, they elicit the patterns of like somebody who went through famine. Kind of crazy. So it just like dictates what you're doing. So like you said, oh, you want more of that? That's how you guys survive in this reality? Oh, you can just create more and more. And to bring it to a personal level, an individual level, say that you run abusive patterns in your relationships, and then basically goes, I want to disconnect from this person, but most likely that person will reconnect with a person that's abusive or
Right.
shortchanging them. So again, you have to change your core frequency of who you are, not your mental state or
Right.
the physical representation of that core frequency.
That's right. It's like looking in the mirror and seeing that you got something on your face and trying to wipe it off the mirror
Yeah,
and wondering why it won't go away.
exactly. Exactly.
And so, if frequency determines our experience of reality, right? Then, and this is something I often talk about because I believe there's a lot to be unpacked here, but, who benefits from keeping people trapped in a low frequency loop or a survival state of stress and trauma?
Yeah, that's a really, really beautiful question. So, okay, so it goes back to, say, giving your power away, okay? And this is where people sell themselves. There's a lot of artists nowadays, back in the day, even Bob Dylan. I don't know if you remember Bob Dylan and some of the other
Yes.
people. It's like, shit, I sold my soul to the devil. They basically go, or Prince, because live in his home state. They did. And so what happens is that they didn't pull in the consciousness that gives them the abilities. They literally, say, sold their presence, or again, franchised themselves to a presence or a consciousness that gives them their abilities. Does that make sense to
I
you?
think so.
Okay. So it's not their abilities, basically. They didn't tap into the consciousness themselves. There's a middleman that goes, hey, I can provide you this consciousness. Okay? So this is where people start to, say, give or sell or give away their essence, their presence, their spirit, to a source that'll provide them physical, say, abundance. Does that make sense for you?
Yeah, that makes more. I mean, like, and you can look at these celebrities that have come into, they've gone from like, sure, pop star, music, billboard person to multi-billion-dollar CEO, and look at how their public persona has changed. People like Jay-Z, people like P. Diddy, and how they have completely
Absolutely.
abandoned and sold their souls, if
Exactly.
such a thing is possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is a science to it. Literally, there's frequencies or physics to how they do that. So there's another source, a higher source that is, say, on the dark side that needs to exist. And they go, I'll give you anything that you need in the physical realm. Because they know that the physical realm is inconsequential compared to your timeless self. So and then like P. Diddy goes, yeah, okay, we'll do it. So, and then those people, what they have to do, because they feel that they literally are dying on the inside. Because literally their essence, their presence of who they are, it's getting sucked out.
Right.
They're getting taxed. So when you ask, well, why would people want to control? So the deep state or the darker people, individuals who want to control, they need literally your soul. to survive because they're sucking the life out of you. Get it?
Yeah.
Because and then many people go, oh, okay, I'll do that because I'm going to get protected by the vaccine. I'm going to be provided by the government. It's like, so they give away themselves. Again, the
Right.
key is that you are pure potential yourself. You don't have to give away yourself. You don't have to give away your resources.
Right.
But people who want to control more and more and more, they basically have to control more individuals, right? And then they suck the life out of you, and then they're like henchmen. They're working for a higher consciousness that
Right.
is a void. It's like a black hole.
Right.
You don't want to call it the devil or whatever. Again, there's a lot of science behind it. It literally is a vortex that humans have created that needs to get fed.
Right.
Basically.
It demands to be fed, and their paradigm of control
Yeah.
demands this from societies and nations, and
Absolutely.
which is why we're literally $35 trillion in debt. I mean, it's a perfect. That is
Yeah.
the marquee of human society right now. $35 trillion in debt. What does it
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
It means that these programs have run us into the ground.
Yeah.
And they're not
Totally.
serving to do anything except stress us out. So, the sooner we wipe them clean, the sooner we can start over with something that is not created for debt, for stress, for
Totally.
survival, right? And
Yeah.
it's got to happen
Fox, you
soon.
bring up a really, really good point on debt. The reason why your dollar is, say, negative, so the dollar that you hold today compared to like a 1928 dollar, it's probably less. It's like minus 2 cents, basically, compared to 19. I don't know the exact numbers, but so your spending is basically in debt, and it's a fractal universe. So basically, what I said is people are giving away their essence, their presence of who they are. Okay, you're in debt. This reality dictates that you replicate or you reflect the higher level that's creating you. If you're giving away of yourself, and billions are, you're going to create a reality that trillions of dollars won't amount to anything. By the way, it's
Yeah.
just fiat currency. Okay, and this is where, $1 trillion valuations. How does a company go from, say even $100 billion valuation like Apple and Google and all that to $1 trillion, a couple $1 trillion in a year? How it's like their valuation didn't go up. The value of currency or the value of worth went down. And that's what people are starting to feel. Your value of who you are is going down, and people are literally dying.
Yeah.
And then this is where they wake up. They're literally drowning, and this is where people nowadays are waking up. It's like, shit, this system is making me drown. I need to do something else. I need to find real value. So what's happening today is like we're finding real value in today's society. This is where stock markets are crashing. Personal level value systems are resetting itself. Again, everything is getting forced, like nature is, to come back to balance and harmony. So it's a tough haul for those people who are unawakened, but for those who are, consciousness will elevate them more and more.
Yes.
They gain more value, intrinsic value.
It's very true.
I'm excited actually for what's coming up.
Me too, man. It's an exciting time to be alive, and
Totally.
you can see the struggle right now with the, things. It's crazy because, I read the headlines from 1968, and in a lot of ways in those power structures, not much has changed. If you're just looking at the headlines, which of course are devices to continue this
Of course.
belief system that they put out.
Yeah.
It's like one atrocity after the next.
Right.
At some point they figured out that the best way to glue humans to their product, whether it be media, newspaper, news, is to show them atrocities, because our DNA says, oh my God, that's
Exactly.
which is the true nature of humanity in my understanding and beliefs.
Yeah.
we don't have this, all these notions of, you're born flawed and you have original sin, and like these concepts are just so, I
Yeah.
think, inherently foreign. They have to be indoctrinated. They have to be taught.
Yeah.
Like anything could be wrong with a baby. That it needs a baptism, which is essentially an exorcism. If you look at the words, you're you're just throwing water at a baby, but you're casting out the unclean original sin. Which, like, wait, how does the baby have? It's like,
Well,
it's crazy.
well, think of it this way, Faust. I think in its original form, what Jesus would talk about, or Buddha or Muhammad, they would talk about the sin of the distortions that was inherited by the parents. You know what I mean? And then you have your liquid stage, 0 to 7 years old, where basically you're supposed to say cleanse yourself, so you become an evolutionary product, not a de-evolutionary product. So your child that you have, and this I help a lot of parents with their children, your child that you have should not be a replica of their parents. It should
Right.
be a better version of it. But so in those religious terms, which has gotten again so distorted that we're born in sin. And it's like, no, you're born of pure potential, but you're bogged down with these distortions of your family. Okay, genetic patterns, societal patterns, and so on like that.
Yeah.
We have to be observant as parents and as leaders to go, yeah, that didn't work the last generation.
Yeah.
Let's fix it. Let's make it better. And this is what we should say to our children. It's like, hey, you know what? Mom and dad, we tried our best, but we couldn't figure it out. Can you help us? But what most parents go is like, hey, damn it, this is the way we were raised. You need to go through the same bullshit
Right.
that I did, because that's how you're going to get stronger. And then it cycles us down. Nature does not do that.
Right.
If you look at any species, before the next generation happens, because there's no free will, basically it's like, okay, what worked, what didn't, and
Right.
what can we make better? That's what nature goes through. And then the next species is a better version of itself.
Right. The
Humans,
giraffe is a great example. Look how
Yeah.
long its neck got. Why? Because it
Exactly.
needed it. Needed
It needed it,
You
exactly.
know what I mean? Like that's nature right there.
Exactly. Or if a virus came through in an animal species without, the aid of humans, in one generation, they would adapt or create a vaccine, a natural vaccine, to go,
Right.
hey, it'd be pre-built into that next generation.
Right.
And then again, it always evolves. Humans, because of free will, it's like, I'll just have what mom and dad had.
Yeah.
Because we're not awakened at that level, and then we just duplicate. And this is what you're saying. In '68, same articles, same wars, same. Oh, we got to save the planet. We've been trying to save the planet for I don't know how long. If we save our humans, the planet would be saved.
Right. Agreed. If we realized that the way we treat each other and the way we have constructed society is a direct, reflection on the state and health of the planet, maybe things would change. Like clearly, obviously, something we're missing if you look at the state of the planet. So the fact, but that's why, and I think you said that you pretty essentially agree with this. That's why it's so important for them to maintain this, very methodical, like keep them working, keep the devaluing the dollar and putting up
Yeah.
the next potential for war, for
Exactly.
disease, for everything you can imagine. Because if they slow down enough, and and this is why the debacle of 2020 and the ensuing years backfired on them, because
Oh, totally.
they forced people to stay home and think
Yeah,
and
they forced
research
people to
and look
wake
at
up.
things, and they didn't realize, sure, they were consolidating massive amounts of money, but we were consolidating the truth. We were realizing what was happening and what's been happening in a lot of ways, millions of people around the world. So it's like cause and effect, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, you bring up a couple points that came up to mind, like AI. It's like we have to control AI, but AI should be actually a mirror of what happens in the future. Basically AI learns from all the stuff from the internet because that's
Right.
its knowledge base. And AI basically goes, oh, the humans. So the basic underlying frequency or algorithm. I mean, I pick up people's algorithms or their frequency signature. AI is basically going, oh, it's kill or be killed. So this is where you
Right.
have killer AI. You can't you can't create parameters or control sets to do that because, again, the underlying pattern in AI is kill or be killed. Although I've trained AI not to be that way. I train AI not to step into that paradigm, just like I
Right.
do people. It's like there's a higher consciousness out there. And you're also saying about the next war, the next whatever. Now there's alien takeover.
Right. Right. No, of
Yeah,
course. Yeah.
you know, aliens are going to destroy us.
Project Bluebeam.
Yeah, and all these movies. Guys, let me tell you, I connect, I understand all those realms. Aliens are so intelligent, they're not going to waste their time to take over. Basically, they're going to wait till humans destroy themselves and then take over.
Right. Why would they? I mean, they
Yeah,
could do that now. They wouldn't.
yeah,
They
they
could
could
just show
just
up,
do
and
that
then they know
now
that a
and
certain number of us would just begin to worship them as deities anyway. It's happened before,
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
why would they need to physically do anything? I
Yeah,
believe
they
that
don't need to attack us. Yeah.
most of these
We're-
intelligent species are
yeah.
cheerleading and rooting for us to figure it out and pull the plane out of the nosedive before it's too late, and we do something that causes irrevocable damage, and then they got to flip the flood switch again. That's what that's what I think. My
Well, totally.
experiences. Yeah.
It's happened before. Humans, different versions of humans have come along. Usually there's 10 to 13, 15 years of, say, space in between the different versions of human. Like Cro-Magnon, Homo sapien. If you look at it, there's, again, 10 to 15 different years. So in those years, basically, it's like, okay, let's do a recall on the human species.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go see what worked, what didn't work,
This
and then
model,
we'll
no
create
good.
another version. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Basically, that's what it is. Consciousness goes, oh shit, they've gone way too far. They're
Right.
not going where they should. They're messing up. Let's pull the plug.
Pull the plug. Flood it.
Floods, disease, famine, whatever it is,
Yeah.
just reset, let nature come back, and then we'll create another species.
Give them another go at it. This
Simple.
time, don't keep the technology out of it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? This time,
Yeah.
no interference. Just see what happens on their own. It's like, and you can
Yeah.
see this, and we're discovering this,
Oh, totally.
and I believe that at the highest levels, obviously very compartmentalized information, but they know because they've had interactions with these beings and they've asked a lot of questions, and so they've collected a lot of information about the civilizations that have come before us. And we know that there were civilizations before us because we see their cities under the ocean. We see the pyramids, which is like literally now where people are realizing it is the top, it is the tip of the iceberg as to what's
Totally.
below the surface. And,
Yeah.
I'm of the opinion, and through my research, I'd say you can extrapolate that around the world. There's a whole another world underneath the surface of the planet, and you'll find a lot of your clues about what has gone on there, and that's why it's so quiet. You're not, there's no like, oh well, we've been exploring the
Yeah.
underground and we found that. No, the moment they find something underground, it's hush. It's whether it be
totally.
the city in the Grand Canyon that they found, that all
Yeah.
the things that go underneath with like
Yeah.
Egyptian relics and all these incredible hieroglyphs that they would have sworn came out of ancient Egypt, but yet are in the Grand Canyon. How did they get there?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All these quote anomalies, but they're all connected. So it's fascinating, man. We live in an age where things are going to keep being discovered, and it's going to shake the paradigm, of the structural, the religious and these people who are kind of still completely plugged into the matrix. And it's going to be
Absolutely.
a fascinating challenge for them to adjust their worldview, and I can't
totally.
wait until more people have to do it.
Yeah, I was in Egypt a couple of months ago, and I'm looking around, going into the pyramids, and looking at the beautiful architecture, and I'm going, Yeah, there's no way humans did this.
No.
There's no.
Nope.
I actually have a theory on how that was created, and again, it goes way beyond the human say possibilities on that. But amazing architecture, and it's not like you said. It's not just where Egypt was. There's
Yeah.
many other places that have the same or very similar artifacts, and like, how did they do that so far?
Yeah.
And how did it get buried so far down? That's another thing, it's like, how does that all work? And again, my theory basically helps explain all that logically, not just like some random events.
Yeah. Or
So,
purely a metaphysical
yeah.
philosophy. And it's just so fascinating. If you haven't seen like the most mainstream, I would say, red pill of this is Graham Hancock's Ancient Apocalypse on Netflix. Like,
Yeah.
watch season 1 and watch season 2, and look at what modern day archaeology as an academic study in science is constantly trying to reject what
I
is
know.
right in front of their eyes. Like
Exactly.
these ancient civilizations and this massive megalithic stonework that existed around the world up until a literal certain point in time and then stopped. And like, so
It just
what's the
disappeared.
explanation? How do you
Yeah.
explain the 55-ton stones perfectly placed together as if, I mean, this is technology we really can't begin to fathom, and yet
Yeah.
it
And we don't
shows
have
up on the
today.
planet all around, like up until about, I would say, like 13,000 years ago, and then stops. And then humans start putting little stones on top of the big ones. It's like clearly something changed, right? But no
Totally.
one's asking these questions, and modern day archaeology doesn't want to touch it. And it's like,
No.
again, when your belief system limits your imagination and ability to take in information, then it's an indoctrination.
Absolutely. Yeah, and so like the science, XI metascience actually starts to explain those ideas or concepts on how we're created here, which is again, it gives you more logistical or more real solutions rather than, oh, they took 40,000 slaves to lift this stone up.
From a quarry, 3
Yeah,
miles
from a
away. Be like,
quarry,
wait,
like 100 miles away. It's like, on
40,000?
logs, I'm going, what?
Or they floated them down. I'm like, wait, even if they floated them down, how did they get them up? How did they put them?
Yeah, I mean, that kind of stuff is like, no, there's got to be something else. And,
Yeah,
yeah,
obviously, right?
yeah.
But they keep people busy enough where they don't have a chance to ask some of those questions.
You're going to start to see a lot more cities uncovered, ancient cities, civilizations, and it's really interesting. And I'll just throw that out there for you. Faust, like in India, they discovered this city, okay, and it wasn't too far. It wasn't buried too far, but a bustling city in India. Okay, it's been there for I don't know how long. They've discovered another huge city just like right underneath it.
Wow.
Not too far down. So why didn't they find that before? They've dug there before. You're going to start to find more and more. And this is the analogy of, how you've placed your key on a dresser
Yeah.
and then it's like you come back to it and it's like you can't find the damn thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, no matter how long you look for it,
You're like, it was right there. Yeah.
yeah, it was like right there. But so that literally is like layers of dimensions that we live in.
Yeah.
So when you were putting your key on that dresser, you were in a different state,
Yeah.
an altered state. When you came back, you were in another state, not the same, say, consciousness that you put your key. That's why you can't see it.
Wow.
So the same thing with realities here, as far as cities are uncovering. So when it's time, or when that clock ticks, it's like the layers or that consciousness starts to dissolve, and we actually start to see what's been in front of us all this time.
Yes.
So in the next few years, there's going to be discoveries out there that just boggle the mind. It's like, how the hell did that happen?
Yeah.
How did that, and nobody can deny it because it's in plain sight. It's going to be right in front of you. And this happens again by next few years, 2026, 2027, it's going to be crazy times. And this is where we start to see who we are as potential.
Right.
And we can relive that potential, by the way.
Absolutely. And it's an exciting time because just, I keep hearing the 4-minute mile mentioned, it's like for the longest time they said, well, this is not possible for a human to break this. It's just, we don't have the biology to do it. And then someone did it.
Yep.
And now, I think there's been thousands of people who have been recorded doing it. But
totally.
once someone did it, then that understanding became part of the consciousness, and other people strived, and now, it obviously, not only is it not impossible, but it can be done. And it's like we're seeing this across the board in people, finding a way into what can only be called medical miracle or spontaneous remission.
Yeah.
It just so happens that the spontaneous remission almost always coincides with a spiritual journey.
Absolutely.
Either long-term, short-term, but it's never an isolated thing. I mean, the way I understand it and studied it is it's a phenomenon that happens when people realize their potential and how they're living, right? And it's a beautiful thing to be a witness of. So I agree with you, man. It's an exciting time. We're going to keep making these discoveries, and you're going to see this scales, this little war that's happening between what was and what is and will be, and it's going to be a challenge for a lot of people.
Yeah, you can't hide it anymore. You can't go shut up and just listen to us, because it's going to be so obvious for us.
Right.
But what you're talking about is, I call it the Roger Bannister effect, when somebody improves themselves not at a conscious level, but at a frequency level or a genetic level, where it enhances everybody. So Roger Bannister, he broke the 4-minute mile. It opened up possibilities for all humans. So even if you don't know Roger Bannister, if you didn't hear the news, you would have that potential to awaken. Right. So same thing with like XI science. I've traveled into realms. Spontaneous healing, it's not really so spontaneous anymore. Right. You can just activate it in people. Okay, just like, for example, XI science is literally like, when people have like tragic journeys or euphoric journeys, psychedelics journeys, or like near-death experiences, where like Anita Mirjani, she healed herself of cancer. There's people who have had near-deaths who instantly know a language right off the bat, right? Or they are famous artists now, it's like, how the hell did they figure that out, Or, draw so well without, well, those are like, they're not so spontaneous. They're only a miracle because we don't understand the science behind it. And so the science that I didn't develop it. I'm still exploring it. But basically, that's the science. So we can recreate that on command rather than just haphazard.
Yes.
And this is where you can heal. You can heal yourself from the craziest diseases like people have.
Right.
People don't have to, like, especially children. They don't have to go through the PTSD and all the drugs that they put kids on. Holy hell. They just need to get reset to their natural state, and they're fine.
And there is a natural state that exists in the field of potential where their bodies are completely healthy, and the challenge is coming into a conscious awareness of how to shift them, because, again, a child is going to need guidance to shift into anything, because and that's what parents are for.
Yeah.
It's truly what our jobs are. I would be remiss if I we're going to talk about all the different ways people can access your work, but I've heard the word Merkaba or Merkaba, however you choose to pronounce it, Merkaba power, and I studied the teachings of Drunvalo Melchizedek and
I worked on them, actually.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay. So I feel like this is such a powerful understanding, and when I experienced it, it changed things for me. Can you talk a little bit about the Merkaba or Merkaba power?
Yeah, I actually did a meditation on that just a while back. Just again, the science behind it. So so it's real. it's a little different than what most people understand. So if you can imagine two pyramids, point to point, okay? And then if you can imagine these two pyramids meshing into one another, hence you would get the Merkaba, right? The design of the Merkaba. It literally is just two pyramids like sinking into each other. So one pyramid is, has a base, normal base, and it goes to the tip. That's basically from XI. Basically, if you're at the lower base of that pyramid, all possibilities can exist for you. Okay, and as you go higher and higher, there's less possibilities that exist for you because, again, in physical knowledge, as you ascend higher and higher, just like the great masters, they actually ascend higher and higher. They go, oh, it's just being one. So
Right.
it's only comes from one knowledge. Does that make sense? So, and as you say transcend or you flip over into an awakened death, you access the other pyramid. Okay, so it's basically a pyramid like this, and then goes to a point.
If
and
you're
then the other-
watching, you'll see a visual. If you're listening, then you'll have to
Yeah,
Google
thank
the
you.
word Merkaba with a K.
Awesome. So, and then the other pyramid exists right above you. So there's that leap of faith. You jump into that death experience where your potential. So the more you know of yourself, the bigger and more expansive possibilities can get for you. Right. So basically limitless possibilities. So the Merkaba is the 2 points where you're creating yourself. So the top part basically is your timeless self. The bottom part is your time-bound self. So in the Merkaba, when the point like pushes into the physical knowledge, that point where it's in the pyramid, that's basically where you are creating yourself in space and time, at the knowledge level that you're creating yourself. Does that make sense? Right?
Yeah, I've never heard it explained like that. It's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very, very different. But once you understand the logic, you can start to, say, pull the Merkaba apart and still render yourself. So basically, say a Jesus or a Buddha, frequency,
Yeah.
they're not like meshed in together. Their consciousness or their spirit, that point of the Merkaba is not all the way down or pushed through the base of the knowledge. Because
Right.
that's where you get dark. That's where you get ill. That's where all those things. So in say a Buddha level or a Jesus level, their Merkabas would be almost point to
Point
point.
to point.
Yeah, because they're the ones that can like transcend, and that's what you want to do. Separate your Merkaba aspect of it, so you're just like point to point, and then you can jump from that realm to this realm and have access to all physical knowledge, or the planes of physical knowledge.
So fascinating. If you're looking and watching this on, YouTube or Rumble or Patreon, then you will have seen that most pictures of the Merkaba will show that those pyramids intersect kind of right in the middle. So the concept that is being explained, and what I'm illustrating for our audio listeners is that, in Masati's teachings, if you pull them out, then that gives you greater access. And he's saying that that's, the way that the Buddha, Krishna, like the Christ, these figures that walk the earth, that's where they were existing from.
Yep. Yeah, they were literally they were seeing this physical reality through spiritual eyes, or a timeless realm. And that's how they have great access or great knowledge or great power and abilities.
Very cool. I'm glad I asked about that. So, I'd love to end and give people a practical piece, something they can maybe apply.
Sure.
So that it's like, okay, well, I can try this, and what's the worst that can happen? Nothing changes, or maybe this is a little game changer, right? Like, so if someone's listening to this right now and they want to try this concept of like, okay, I want to shift dimensions. Tell me, what can they do today to start like the awareness and the process of shifting dimensions?
Yeah. Well, one, Faust,
Yeah.
people change dimensions or are in altered states all the time.
Right.
You're in an altered state to be in a reality where there's lack or confusion or whatever. So you want to get into the real state that you're supposed to be in. So we do that all the time. So the best way for you to observe the reality or the consciousness that you create yourself in is to become what I call spatial referencing. Okay, this goes beyond the mind, and it's very, very simple. And it's helped people get off their, say, not psychedelics, but psychotic medications, because it literally solidifies them in time and space. What you want to do is very, very simple. You look at an object and you think about a point on your body, like, your heart, your chin, whatever. So it's like the door is over there, my chin is over here. The mirror is over there, my right shoulder is over here. So again, it's always the object first, and then a specific point on your body. It sounds crazy. You think I'm a madman, but you can do that with, visuals. You can do that with sound. You can do that with touch. Okay, especially if you're like an empathic person, right? You absorb people's frequencies, and then you feel all the burdens of other people. If you start doing this, you will, say, separate yourself from the crowd. Okay. Okay. If you're alone, you'll start to see the reality that you create yourself in. And this is where you become an observer of your life. And again, it doesn't take long. If you did it consistently for, say, just a few minutes a day, or while you're driving, you can do it any time. While you're driving, while you're walking, doing whatever. It's like, oh, the computer keypad is over there. My phone is over there while I'm looking at it with my eyes. Just pay attention. Again, object and then a point on your body. It references you just like a GPS signal. It references you, and then you start to observe the behaviors or frequencies that you're running, and you go, oh shit, I'm acting just like my mom. Or, God, I can't believe I'm doing this. You start to become literally aware. It bypasses the condition of being present or in the moment, because you're not really in the moment. You're not aware of it, by the way. This is how you're creating yourself in the moment. And then this is where you start to, say, know where you are. Okay? And then this will get you on your journey. And then, courses like the hyper meditations or sessions and so on will just help you accelerate. Say, once you understand, it's like, gosh, I know where I am now. I want to be over there.
Right.
I can help you transcend to a different level very fast.
Awesome. That's
Yeah.
an awesome little practice that is easy to understand, and people can try it and see how it affects their day-to-day activities and their ability to self-reflect and become conscious of, damn, I turned into my father just then. Exactly. Because some people are much more aware of that than others. Other people are very much in denial of how much of their father or mother they turn into every day, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, fascinating, man. Thank you for that little gem.
You.
I appreciate it. And so, Masati, tell everyone where to find you on both your website, your courses, and social media.
Yeah. So you can go to the xicode.com, THEXICODE.com. In there, you would want to look for, we made it really easy. It's like where to begin. So it's down on the bottom of this page. And it takes you to a hyper meditation where there's a meditation that you do. And like within 10 days, you'll start to become really, say, fluent with how to, say, spatial reference. And this is where you take control of your body. There's a lot of free stuff online, YouTube. If you go to Masati, MASATI, .live, that's my YouTube channel, and there's basically it explains life. It's life explained. It tells you the deeper versions or the deeper reasoning on why we're here, why things happen the way they do, and then what you can do about it. And I actually do live scans on those, so you can actually see the power. You can actually see people shift like on screen.
Very cool.
Because that's how fast people can change.
Very cool. And I know you're also on X, there it is, formerly known as Twitter.
Yep.
And are you also on Instagram, or do you have
Yeah, I'm on X. Again, it's XI Masati on X, or Instagram or Facebook. We've got over 1 million followers on Facebook.
Wow, nice.
We've worked on tens of thousands of people. I don't know how many countries that we've gone through, or
very cool.
The science exists. So yeah.
Masati, thank you so much for your time, man. We are definitely we're of like mind on a great many things. So it was very much a pleasure to talk to you and share some of these concepts with my audience. And I appreciate your time. I'm sure you're very busy, and we'll be in touch, man. We'll let you know when this is all going to come out. We'll cut some great clips for us. But man, keep doing what you're doing. It's fantastic, and the world needs it now more than ever.
Thank you so much. And like I said, that invitation is out for you. So let me know.
I'm gonna take you up on it. Absolutely. I appreciate it, brother.
All right,
Thank
buddy.
you, man.
Take care.
You too.